Hey, I'm so excited to share a description of the type of work or the type of coaching that I do with clients. By title, I'm a conscious parenting guide, but also a spiritual alignment coach. So, basically, what that means is that I've done a lot of study into conscious parenting, gentle parenting, peaceful parenting, and a type of education called unschooling. However, the part of it that is spiritual alignment, how that comes into play, is that the coaching that I do is not only from the mind and from study, although that part of it is very useful and can help with like tools and tactics and stuff, like a baseline understanding. A lot of the work that I do is actually channeling. So, what that means is that when I work with a client, I'm tuning in energetically to the sort of downloads that are for that client. And there's actually like a very practical way that that works for me. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm listening to the frequency of the client, or I'm listening to the questions, the challenges, the situations that the client is bringing up. And that gives me an indication. It's sort of like an energetic match or opening a portal, if you will, to these sort of downloads that can come through. And I recognize the downloads through the feeling that I get. So I'll start to get these little like waves of information, if you will. It's like a hook. They're like little hooks, energetic hooks, and they have a certain feeling to them. It feels good. It feels like a flow, like a stream almost, and it has this little tickly alignment feeling that when I open up to that, when I hook onto that and bring it in through, it just starts to flow through my voice. And it's almost like I'm being spoken. I'm not really the one doing the speaking. It's not like I'm coming from a book that I've studied and repeating information to the client. It's more like reading into a certain frequency. Now, whether that's however we want to call that frequency, I think the most accurate depiction is our higher self. And perhaps it's our guides, my guides, your guides, the client's guides, whatever, but it really is the frequency of our higher self ultimately. So a lot of times before sessions, I'll just let the guides know and I'll let myself know that they are welcome to uh, give their input, that I'm open for them to totally assist on the call. So, this style of coaching is not, I don't consider myself a psychic. It's not like I'm reading someone's energy by holding their hand and just staying quiet. A lot of times the energy comes through from hearing the client actually speak about their experience, you know? But there's also times when before a phone call with someone who maybe I don't even know, I'll start receiving information or downloads already prior to. So that does have an element of like psychic energy to it. But what I really think it is, it's that we're tuning into the frequency of the phone call. We're tuning into the relevant messages that are going to come through for that client. And it's a gift for me as well. There's so many times when what comes out of my mouth, I'm like, wow, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. And thank you. It doesn't feel like it's really me all the time. It doesn't feel like I'm doing it. It's more like it's being done through me, which is very rewarding. I learn a lot on these calls as well as, I hope the client does, So, yeah. And the style of spiritual awakening, that the sort of energetic match that I'm talking about, the style of information that's coming through, is basically on the note of life is your teacher always. We're here having an awakening experience. So what is occurring for us is occurring for our evolution. And the way that we get in touch with that evolution is through our emotional body. So our emotions are how spirit speaks to us. Our emotions tell us the energy of our perception. Now, so when we have like a swing in the negative direction, an emotional swing in the negative direction in any way, shape, or form, it's just telling us the way that we are thinking, the way that we're perceiving has fallen out of alignment with how the higher self sees things. When we feel positive, connected, calm, relaxed, things like that, it's almost like getting a little taste of heaven. It's getting a little taste of how higher self sees things, how God sees things. Yeah, and that process in and of itself, that's perhaps oversimplified, just because when we start to use the emotional body as our guidance, when we start to go through that unfolding or through that learning, there are subtleties, okay? Because a lot of times we feel really positive because we're attached to something and something has gone our way that we're attached to. So that's not exactly the type of positive feeling that I'm talking about, because that's sort of like a mental setup. When we're attached to something physically, going our way, and then life matches that physicality and it says, oh, look, now you got what you wanted, that feels really good. We know that through our life experience, life can go the other way anytime. So if we're using that as our measure for our happiness or our sadness, that's actually attachment to form, that's attachment to circumstance. And life, being our teacher, will want us to be brought back into alignment. So a lot of times it will actually mirror to us our attachment. It'll mirror to us what we don't want. That's also our gift. If we feel bad about getting what we don't want, that's where bringing our thoughts into alignment are. And this has a lot to do with Eastern mysticism as well, or Buddhism, which is basically not being attached to form and not releasing our judgments over form, over what is good and what is bad for us personally, in terms of like what happens along our path, getting really upset, or being attached like this on the roller coaster, and learning to more take a neutral standpoint. What it is a welcoming. It's a welcoming of whatever is arising, loving what is arising, using what is arising for keeping our mind balanced. And this work goes deep. Okay, so depending on where the individual is, that just dictates how subtle the learning will go. Because as we go on this path, there's many, many different layers. There's many different phases. All of them are totally valid. All of them are full of fun, and are just so soul nourishing. Like, it feels so good to begin to bring ourselves into alignment, or to continue bringing ourselves in alignment through our spiritual practice. But yes, there are like just many different layers is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. So moral of the story, this type of coaching, this type of work, by the way, it's not only for parents. So the spiritual alignment sessions can be for any individual. It just so happens that I have 4 kids, so that has brought my study towards parenting. And so I have a lot of really poignant understanding there to bring to the table, but also just life stuff. I mean, I have run my own business over the years, and had a family and all the things. So there's a lot of understanding there, plus the spiritual study that I've done. But moral of the story is, this style of work, this style of coaching is much different than psychotherapy. This is a different aspect altogether. It's channeling. It has to do with our spiritual development. And that is just so much fun. So, yay.